Hello. In this lecture, I will talk about how the Spartan civilization has influenced Western civilization. The Spartan culture started sometime in the 900s and ended in the year 192 BC. The name Sparta referred to the main settlement on the banks of the Eurotas River in Laconia in southeastern Peloponnese in southern Greece. Ancient Spartan civilization, as well as many other cultures throughout time, have all influenced the present in many ways that people don't realize or sometimes care about. The Spartan civilization has interacted with many other civilizations such as Athens and Persia, and they each have traded and interacted with many other civilizations, impacting them through their conquests, social and political ideals, language, and economics. Since many of the places colonized by the English, they have since now been referred to as the Western part of the world. At the time, the English were the biggest spreader of what has become known as Western civilization. This shows that most places touched by the English spread of Western culture, as well as they themselves, have been touched by ancient civilizations like ancient Greece, including the Spartans. I wanted to let others know what they don't understand, which is how our lives have been and are still affected in this country and others in the Western world by civilizations and cultures like Sparta. Knowing how so much of Western civilization has been influenced by ancient Spartan culture would stop the belief that Western culture came from just the West. Sparta and all of what's now the Western world has been influenced by cultures from places like Central Asia and places in the Middle East. Therefore, we don't just get our concepts and ideas from the West, but the West has been influenced by Eastern parts over the centuries. Knowing these things could teach people to think more about what makes countries they love so much and take pride in what they truly are. People who say negative and ignorant things about their other countries would then understand that the things they think about their own country comes from ones that they feel are evil or wouldn't understand their culture. The Spartan language, as well as others, ancient Greek cities or places have influenced in some ways the English language. We get lesbian from the island of Lesbos, Corinthian from Corinth, and Attic from Athens. Sparta gave us the word Spartan, obviously, and Laconic from the words Lacedaemonians or Lacones, and other ways they refer to themselves. They also gave us the word Helot. For us, in the present, we refer to an ethnic or common economic class that has been exploited. The Spartans, however, used the word Helotes to more than likely refer to a captive, and were definitely referring to the people of Helots. These people were thought of as subordinates to the Spartans and forced to be their source of labor or be destroyed. We can also look at our sports. Lycurgus's efforts and endeavors led to the foundation of the Olympic Games. Named after the city-state of Olympia, the Olympic truce was made. Half of the truce was made for religious reasons, and the other half for a pragmatic reason to distract from the turmoil between the city-states. Modern sports can be thought of as bad as a real war to some people competing, but with the misunderstanding of the Olympics history, it can actually be a good thing that people in the modern day might not realize how bad that competing isn't as bad as they might have thought, as the city states did in ancient Greece and won't take it to that point. Anytime people in the present day Olympics, however, can thank a Spartan like Lycurgus for the way that they compete today. The Spartans have also made influence to military strategies that have been used later in history. Spartan strategy for war was a clear, direct approach and annihilation of the enemy. They employed this strategy against the Athenians during the Peloponnesian War. The Spartans realized the way to accomplish this was to turn against Athens and to attack the sources of Athenian strength. The center of power of Athens was Attica. The direct approach strategy wasn't the first choice by NATO during the Serbian War, but eventually, with the previous strategy of exhaustion and it not being effective, direct approach was the only solution in sight. With escalation on bombing, the US employed these tactics after September 11, 2001. Annihilation was thought of as the only solution, and attacks on Afghanistan to directly get to the Taliban led to a quick collapse of the Taliban regime. The revival of classical culture has led to many productions based on important moments in Spartan history. This started in the Renaissance with architecture, art, entertainment, and other forms. There have been many films such as 300, The 300 Spartans, and while some might not be completely rooted in historical accuracy like the 300 Spartans, there are some like 300 that is rooted slightly more in the overall historical basis for its story. It's very obvious that while accuracy isn't always the goal, the history of Sparta has and still continues to influence people in many forms of art. These movies have been very successful and have revived the interest of modern people in Spartan history shown to them in pieces of cinema like these. Spartan politics were not solely based on a hierarchical form, but meant to be very equal, but had some degree of hierarchy. At some point, Athens and Sparta contributed to political ideals that have formed many countries' governments and policies. The people of Greece were introduced to think in different ways from the political ideals introduced at the beginning of the war between Greece and Persia for a more unified Greece by Sparta asking the other Greek city-states to help them in the military effort against Persia. We can also see that Sparta has been an influence to the ideals of social change and revolutions that challenge the status quo. Many of the common people in Sparta didn't even own land to make a home in the early 400s BC, and they didn't even have the opportunity to gain land, and the Spartan population declined. The social revolution for change to happen was realized by Cleomenes the Aged. He would abolish the Lycurgian system to achieve his social change. He did this by suppressing the epiphori and got rid of the leading conservatives. He then showed the state his property and encouraged others who owned property to follow his example. The entirety of Sparta was used and distributed property to benefit all of the Spartan population. We can see many times in Western parts of the world with even revolutions like these for the French, Haitian, American, Mexican, and many other revolutions of people in these countries wanting social change with new ideas politically, socially, economically, and other big changes that have shaped the West and a lot of the world to what they are in the present.